Most games give you a story and then end it. Hades gives you a story that only starts making sense after you die 30 times. And somehow, that is exactly why it works. Supergiant Games released Hades in 2020 after a 2-year early access period, and it walked away with Game of the Year awards from practically every major outlet that year. 6 years later, people are still playing it. New players are still discovering it, and the roguelite genre that existed before Hades looks almost primitive compared to what this game pulled off. So the real question worth asking today is not whether Hades was good in 2020. The question is whether it has earned its place in the conversation of all-time great games. After spending serious time with it again in 2026, I have a very clear answer for you. You play as Zagreus, the son of Hades, the god of the underworld. He wants to escape from his father's realm and reach the surface, where his mother supposedly lives. Every time you attempt the escape and die, which will happen constantly in the beginning, you return to the house of Hades and try again. This loop of attempting escape, dying, returning, upgrading, and attempting again is the foundation of every roguelike game. Hades did not invent this formula, but it perfected something that no other game in this genre had managed before. It made dying feel like actual story progression. Every time Zagreus dies and comes back to the House of Hades, there are new conversations, new revelations, new pieces of the story waiting for you. Characters remember what happened in previous runs. Relationships develop gradually over dozens of attempts. The story does not pause while you grind. The story is the grind. That single design decision changed how an entire genre thinks about narrative. Now let us talk about the combat, because this is where Hades spends most of its energy, and it absolutely shows. Zagreus has 6 different weapons to choose from: a sword, a spear, a shield, twin fists, a bow, and a railgun. Each weapon plays completely differently, and each one has multiple hidden aspects that fundamentally change how that weapon behaves. The shield can be thrown like a boomerang and recalled. The fists turn the game into a chaotic close-range brawler. The bow rewards patience and precise positioning. The variety across these weapons is genuinely impressive, and finding a new aspect for the first time and completely rebuilding your understanding of how that weapon behaves is one of the best feelings this game offers. The core combat is fast, responsive, and incredibly satisfying. Every attack has weight, every dodge feels precise. The game runs at a locked, smooth frame rate, and the controls are tight enough that when you die, and you will die, it almost never feels unfair. It feels like a mistake you made. That distinction matters enormously in a game that asks you to fail this many times. Boons are the main upgrade system during a run. These are power-ups gifted to you by the Olympian gods: Zeus, Poseidon, Athena, Artemis, Demeter, Ares, Aphrodite, Dionysus, Hermes, and Apollo each offer their own set of boons that modify your attacks, dash, cast, and call abilities. Finding synergies between boons from different gods is where the build crafting gets deeply satisfying. Some combinations are so powerful they feel almost broken, and discovering them organically during a run, without looking anything up, creates moments of genuine excitement. Then there are duo boons that require boons from 2 different gods simultaneously, and those can completely transform what a run becomes capable of. Between runs, you spend Darkness, a resource collected during attempts, to upgrade permanent stats through the Mirror of Night. Chthonic Peas unlock new weapon aspects and heat levels. Nectar given to various characters builds relationships and unlocks keepsakes that provide passive bonuses during runs. Ambrosia deepens those bonds further. Diamonds and Titan Blood are rarer currencies for more significant upgrades. The progression systems layer on top of each other without ever feeling overwhelming, because the game introduces them gradually and each one feels immediately relevant. The world design inside this game is something that does not get discussed enough. The underworld is divided into Tartarus, Asphodel, Elysium, and the Temple of Styx, each with its own visual identity, enemy types, and atmosphere. The rooms are procedurally generated in terms of layout, but the aesthetic remains consistent and intentional. The art direction is extraordinary, hand-painted visuals with a style that sits somewhere between comic book and classical mythology. In 2026, comparing this art style to games that have come since, Hades still looks stunning. Art direction done well does not expire the way technical graphics do, and Supergiant understood this deeply. The boss encounters deserve their own moment. Megara and her sisters, the Lernaean Bone Hydra, Theseus and Asterius, and the final boss are all memorable fights. Theseus and Asterius in particular is one of the finest boss fights ever designed in an action game. Two completely different enemies with different attack patterns that force you to constantly switch focus and manage space. Dying to that fight in the early hours and then eventually clearing it cleanly after understanding everything it throws at you is deeply rewarding. The voice acting in Hades is among the best ever recorded for a video game. Darren Korb, who handles both music and sound design at Supergiant, created a soundtrack described as Mediterranean fantasy prog rock, and it works in a way that should not logically work, but absolutely does. The music shifts between areas and intensifies during combat in ways that feel alive rather than mechanical. Logan Cunningham voices multiple characters, including Hades himself, and the performance is commanding without being cartoonish. Every major character has a fully realized voice and personality. Megara, Achilles, Nyx, Hypnos, Thanatos, Dusa, they all feel like real people despite being mythological figures drawn in a stylized art style. The relationship system extends into what the game calls true endings. Reaching the surface for the first time is not the conclusion. The full story requires multiple successful escapes and continued investment in character relationships. When the true ending finally reveals itself, it lands with genuine emotional weight. A game that makes you grind for 40 hours earning the right to feel something in the finale is either manipulative or masterfully designed. Hades is the latter. The weaknesses are real but small. The middle biome, Asphodel, is the least interesting visually and mechanically compared to what comes before and after it. The final boss, while thematically appropriate, can feel frustrating in ways the other bosses do not because of specific mechanics that punish aggressive playstyles heavily. Some boon combinations are so clearly stronger than others that certain builds feel like the correct choice rather than a creative one, and for players who simply do not enjoy any form of repetition, no amount of story integration will fix the fundamental reality that you are running similar rooms hundreds of times. But here's what makes Hades remarkable in 2026. The roguelite genre has expanded massively since this game released. Competitors have arrived with larger budgets and broader marketing, and yet when you sit down with Hades again today, it does not feel like an older game that set a standard. It feels like a game that the genre is still chasing. The narrative integration, the combat feel, the character writing, the music, the art direction, all of it came together at a level that most games with double the budget have not replicated. The game runs flawlessly on every platform it has been released on. Load times are essentially non-existent. There are no technical problems to discuss because Supergiant shipped a clean and complete product. In 2026, that level of technical quality at launch still deserves acknowledgement. Hades earns a 4.7 out of 5. The small deductions come from the Asphodel pacing gap, some balance issues in the boon system, and the final boss design. Everything else is close to flawless. This is a game that understood its own identity completely and executed on that identity without compromise. It did not try to be bigger than it needed to be. It tried to be exactly what it was, better than anyone else had managed, and it succeeded. If you have never played Hades, you are sitting on one of the most complete gaming experiences of the last decade. If you played it at launch and moved on, going back today will remind you immediately why it captured everyone's attention. And if you're the kind of person who has been playing it since 2020, then honestly, no explanation is needed. You already know. Drop a like on this if you think Hades deserves everything it got. Subscribe if you want more reviews like this one. Share it with someone who keeps asking you what to play next. And tell me in the comments, what was your favorite weapon and build combination in Hades? I genuinely want to know.